So my name is Uzair, Ibrahim, and I was born in Pakistan, and I grew up there, and I moved to London 6 years ago. So a substantial chunk of my life as someone who lives with disability was spent somewhere that's not really accessible. And so, then you learn to work your way around many things, which has, in a very roundabout way, helped me when I moved here because, I was okay with, I was in a way okay with making things accessible in an unorthodox way for me. So I think the contrast of living somewhere that's not accessible, as opposed to somewhere like London, which is accessible, has really, shaped my experience. Yeah, so, there's never been an official diagnosis of what disability I have. When I was little, doctors used to think, some doctors thought that I had cerebral palsy, but then some thought that I didn't. And in Pakistan, diagnosis still, it's not easy to come by. So, in a way, I don't know the official medical name of what my disability is. I just know that I can't walk. Everything else I can pretty much do except walking.
Why is it important to have diverse inputs in research?
So when I went to a brand new university in Pakistan, and one of the reasons why I chose that university was that the campus was fully wheelchair accessible, and because it was a brand new university, they were experimenting with a lot of things. So they built a thing called Playground on the model of the Stanford Design School. Design thinking was a big thing there, still is. But when I first entered, the playground, the space, it had high tables and high chairs. The corporate sort of design that's in these days, and I was like, and they were like, we didn't think about this. Well, maybe you should have consulted someone when you were designing this space. So, and I wasn't a design student at all, but, but that meant that space was largely sort of unusable for me. But now all of my research has to do with the humanities, and as such I have to use a lot of libraries, and sometimes you just want to browse the library, and some shelves are too high and you can't reach, and there's all sorts of hoops, bureaucratic hoops that you have to go through to get a book. Designing research spaces, if we can, and my disability I consider to be easier to work around. You just need to put a ramp and I'm there. Imagine someone who can't speak, who can't see, who can't hear. There's a whole host of other things that you have to do to make things accessible for them. So it's very important for there to be a disability sort of design consultant in every project, I feel. Just as there might be, a gender consultant, in spaces, yeah.
Have you been involved in contributing to co-design or as a research participant?
To be honest, I haven't. I've designed, all the projects that I've been involved in, because I'm in the humanities, are largely to do with texts and, images and things like that. So in terms of the execution of the research, all we have to do is write, which is easy enough. In terms of accessibility. So in that, even in the humanities, for example, there are a lot of areas of research that I'm interested in that I can maybe participate as a designer, as a co-designer, but I can't participate in executing that research in any way because, that would require fieldwork to parts of the world that are not accessible, for example, the country I'm from. So those things are still, people might think that people who do research in the humanities or social sciences deal largely with only text, but that's not always true because, as someone doing a PhD right now, I decided that all my interviews would be on Zoom because it's much easier to, navigate a computer rather than navigate a physical space, which might end up being inaccessible. And, even if something is accessible on paper, the lift could run out on the day, anything can happen. So yeah.
What advice would you recommend to early career researchers to create inclusive settings when co-creating or conducting research?
Sometimes it could be something as small as the way people are, required to sit in a space. For example, I was teaching a couple of years ago, and I found out that I had a student who was deaf and required lip reading to keep up. So we had to completely reimagine how the classroom would look like, and we had to sort of figure out a way for the student to sit in a place that he could see everyone's faces without, it can't be a U-shape or a lecture theater kind of setting because that is counterproductive. And then we had to, the other students, we had to tell them that there's only one rule, which is that you never speak over anyone else and always raise your hand so that the student can see who's talking. So inclusivity or accessibility might sound like a daunting task, but sometimes it can be as simple as how you require people to sit in a space. Yeah. My advice, coming to your question, my advice to early career researchers would be to not feel bound by conventions, because the way the world is designed and the way to make the world accessible is, at times it requires sort of unconventional sort of thinking, which can be complex but also can be very simple. Yeah.
In terms of your lived experience, what have you seen done well, or what has worked well for you in the past?
A place like the British Library, for example, everyone, regardless of whether they have accessibility needs or they don't, everyone is required to order some things to come up. Things are not on the shelf. Very little things are on the shelf, reference books, catalogs. So, a system like that, which is to say that a system where people with disabilities or access needs can easily call for an item, even if they are available on the shelf, has really worked for me, and can have the potential to work for other people as well, I think. Yeah, and just like making sure I've been to, I've used the Bodleian libraries at Oxford quite a bit, and sometimes because the libraries are old, those spaces can be very narrow, and so if you are designing a project, even if it is in a library and you require people to come, just make sure that the spaces are wide enough, and yeah.
Can you share any common mistakes that researchers should avoid?
Well, I think, and it's not anybody's fault, but I think it should not be default in anyone thinking that, that people will be able to access things as they are, because my name wouldn't tell you that I have a disability. We don't carry, people who have disabilities don't carry a disability card. Yeah, so it's not built into their identity. A name is a name. And it sort of denotes a person rather than, and a person may have a disability or may not have a disability. So I think when you're talking to people, I think the negative is that people just assume that sort of you will be able to access everything, but then you have to, sometimes remind them constantly that, is it, will I be able to access? And that can be sort of cumbersome, and, you don't want to do that every time as well, Yeah.
Is there anything else researchers should be mindful of when working with the disabled community?
So, I think it would be a very good idea if you just ask, just ask up front rather than rely on the person with the disability to come and tell you. And also then to make sure that once you've asked, unless you need another piece of information, that the person with the disability does not have to repeat themselves, because that can be nobody wants to, hello, I'm here, every time. So yeah, I think just being open-minded and forthcoming can go a long way. Yeah.
Do you have any final tips or recommendations you would like to share?
I think one thing that everyone, should keep in mind is that when you make things accessible, you don't make them accessible only for people with disabilities. If something is accessible, it becomes accessible for everyone, regardless of whether they have a disability or not. So I think if we design things with that in mind, I think a lot of the mental barriers that come with innovation, disability innovation in particular, I think will go away, because you will be thinking about everyone, which is ideal, which is what we want at the end of the day. So there is very little access technology that needs to be there only for particular kinds of disabilities. Most technology can help everyone, regardless of whether they have a disability. I think designing something with that in mind, yeah.